This week on the podcast for New All-Age Comic Books for the week of March 28th, 2018, the DC duo, the Unicorn of the Sea, Thea Stilton, Cats, and 2 box sets that will really appeal to girls in elementary school and up.
Hey, and welcome to Daddy Mojo. It's the podcast where we'll talk about parenting, all-age comic books, toys, and more. Now, here's your host, Trey Burley.
Hey there, it's Trey from Daddy Mojo. Thank you for checking out this week's podcast for the new all-age comic books. You say to yourself, where is my closest comic book store? I don't know where it is. That's a logical question. And here's the answer. Just type in comic book store locator into any search engine, and a website will pop up that is conveniently called Comic Book Store Locator. Type in your zip code, and you are most likely 10 miles away from the closest shop. And if you live in a big metro area, probably even closer. So check that out. If you're on the website, it's also linked there. Either way, check it out to find your closest shop. Or you can buy them online through Comixology. That's a good resource, as is Amazon, or also TFAW. Things from a Different World. Just use the acronym TFAW.com. And they have lots of great sales. They really do. The DC Duo, they are out this week. And these 2 comics, they come out the same weeks every month because each issue is fabulous and will blend into any elementary school library at ease. This can be the library at school or your library at home. One of them is Scooby-Doo Team Up. Issue 36 is out this week. Great all-age comic book. Our 8-year-old has loved this series for the past 3 years, ever since he was 5 years old. It's only $2.99. And that's a stormin' deal. The other compendium that goes with this, and I say compendium because usually when we buy one, we buy the other. Because now our 6-year-old prefers this one, Looney Tunes, issue 242. It's out this week. And this one brings back a little bit of retro nostalgia for us when we watched the classic Warner Brothers series cartoons when we were a kid. Because it's the B-list characters from those cartoons that always made us go, wow, remember that guy? And here's a remember who. Do you remember Sam the sheepdog? Ralph Wolf, who looks suspiciously like Wile E. Coyote, in Sam the sheepdog. Sam the sheepdog was always that sleepy sheepdog with the sleeping cap on. And obviously, Ralph Wolf was trying to steal the sheep. It's very much like Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner, except it's a little more sublime, and it ends up with Sam the Sheepdog always beating up Ralph Wolf. But they would clock in and clock out like they were going to a job. Funny stuff, and these guys have the cover to Looney Tunes issue 242, which we'll pick up this week. And it's from DC Comics, and it's only $2.99, so there's a lot to love about that. The other week, we volunteered at our children's book sale at their elementary school. And it's neat to do these things, and I really, really recommend it. A, volunteering at your children's school, and B, specifically the book fair, because you get to see what books all the kids are interested in. Because you may know what your kids want to read, but you're not sure what the other kids. And they can be the older kids, the younger kids, the boys, or the girls. You get to see what they all want to read. And for me, it was fascinating because a very good percentage of all the kids wanted to read book number 2 in this series. This is the Narwhal and Jelly book series from Ben Clanton. They were all after book 2. Book number 3 in that series, Peanut Butter and Jelly, that's the name of this new book, Peanut Butter and Jelly. It's a Narwhal and Jelly book. This is book 3, and I liken this to a child's first graphic novel, similar to Selena Yoon. A couple of years ago, we reviewed Selena Yoon's Duck, Duck, Porcupine, and we called that a child's first graphic novel. Now that particular book and Selena Yoon's characters, that's going to skew just a little bit younger than this one. So if you have an elementary school kid, like kindergarten and up, they are really going to dig this series from Ben Clanton, the Jelly book series. Just funny stuff. Narwhal is a narwhal, the unicorn of the sea. What is it? I've never seen a narwhal, but essentially it's a porcupine, not a porcupine, a poipus. That's a tongue twister, isn't it? A poipus I have no purpose with this podcast. Help me, please. It's a dolphin with a horn. Almost looks like a unicorn. Have I seen a narwhal? Never seen one. But Narwhal loves peanut butter sandwiches so much that he's changing his name to Peanut Butter. And look, his best friend is a jellyfish. The puns build themselves, and this graphic novel is really fun stuff. And kids in kindergarten and up will want to read it. And it's not that expensive either. For, you say, graphic novel, you're looking at $15? No. This graphic novel starts at what it retails for $13, but you can buy it for $11.50 through some of the links, and probably even for less if you shop around. But your kids in kindergarten and up will love it. Stuff their Easter basket, why don't ya? Side note, if you'd be so kind as to share the podcast, we would appreciate it. You can share it on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever platform you do the most with, or leave a rating. It sure would let more people discover all-age comic books, because there are a lot that are aimed at boys and girls of various ages, and one of which, this series, Thea Stilton, man, love this series, and I like it because it's the sister series to Geronimo Stilton. Now, Geronimo Stilton is on Scholastic, whereas this compilation of graphic novels from Thea Stilton the character, are on paper cuts. However, tomato, it's the same concept, where this one, Thea Stilton, is much more skewed towards girls, and that's just the way it breaks. I mean, you've got Geronimo Stilton for boys, Thea Stilton for girls. That's it. But girls will love this series. Our 8-year-old boy likes the Geronimo Stilton series. If you have a 7.5, maybe an 8-year-old girl who maybe doesn't know about Thea Stilton, you may want to introduce them to this, because it's very empowering, and there's a lot of reading with really great art. When you look at these books, I mean, I specifically, I'm using Geronimo Stilton as a reference. I love the art, and I love this series because he's an anthropomorphic mouse. And that's the same thing with Thea Stilton. And this is quite the deal, too. This is 3 graphic novels in one, with this Thea Stilton collection that retails for $15. And kids in elementary school, but you got to be 7. 7 is your entry point to this. 8, that is your hot button, because you'll be able to read it and not ask mom or dad for any assistance. One of the comics that is always dependable, and sometimes we just forget to mention it because we just presume people know about this. Yeah, people know about Lumberjanes. Yeah, all the kids do. But again, per our experience at the recent book fair at school, they were kind of asking me so what's a good book, or what's a good this for that? And I said, well, Lumberjanes, because I was kind of saying, go to the comic book store, get this. And I was very surprised because most of the parents and some of the kids did not know about Lumberjanes. And to be clear, that's not because Lumberjanes skews older or is inappropriate for that age. The parents and the kids who I were talking to, I knew all had a sweet spot in the upper elementary, maybe middle elementary zone, and older. And that's exactly where Lumberjanes really pummels it. And they pummel it in such a great way. It's from Boom Studios. It's a monthly comic book, and issue 48 comes out this week. In this issue, the kids at camp start a newsletter, and the horoscopes are too accurate. It's a simple premise. It really is. But what Lumberjanes does really well in every issue, they blend some lessons, but it's not a lesson comic per se. It's about fun, goofy friendship with a side of science fiction. And sometimes it's more science fiction, sometimes it's more friendship. It's always great. And if you are 9 or up, jump into it without hesitation. Even some of your 8-year-old kids, you're going to read Lumberjanes and say, this is my jam. And what is great about this series is it works as a comic book that is a good gateway reading book, but it also allows for good pleasure reading. So if you just like to read, or if you don't like to read and you're looking for characters that are engaging, for both of you people out there, it works for both camps. Lumberjanes 48, it's out this week. This graphic novel may appeal slightly older, but it's not going to be inappropriate, just because kids won't get the joke. It's from Sarah Anderson, and I just have to mention it because it dovetails very nicely with the book that's after this, but please stay tuned. This is Sarah Scribbles, Herding Cats. Cats rule the internet. There is really no debate about that one. And this is a very funny series, comic strip, that details cats and the adult person's life. I know, it's very much me if I weren't married. It's funny, it's very dry, and if you're in high school or up, I think you'll like it, because middle school kids, they wouldn't get this, or they wouldn't really appreciate it. But if you're in high school or up, herding cats, and it's going to be very dry. I mean, there's nothing adult about this. It's just adult stuff presented in a very comedic way that middle school kids won't like or won't appreciate. Some high school kids will, but you adults, if you're listening and you're looking for something kind of funny and left of center, check this out. It also dovetails very nicely with this one, Star Trek Next Generation Cats. This is a book that presents scenes from Star Trek The Next Generation, except reenacted by cats. I really thought it was a joke the first time I read about this, but it exists, so if you're a cat person or a really diehard Star Trek person, check this out, Star Trek The New Generation, Cats. It's a book from Jenny Parks from Chronicle Books. It looks meowtastic. There are 2 sets of collected books that will speak they'll mainly speak to girls, and they're both great. First up is this from DC Comics. It's DC Superhero Boxed Superhero Set. Now, have you seen the toy line out there? And they're pushing some original graphic novels and some toys specific to the DC superhero girls. So you've got every girl in the DC superhero universe, as well as some of the villains. They all go to high school together. And that's the premise of these graphic novels. This collects 4 of the original graphic novels, and this is going to be appropriate for upper elementary school and up. Middle school and up, slam dunk, because the situations that the kids encounter at DC Superhero High, I think is what they call it, going to be appropriate for you guys, you middle schoolers and up. But upper elementary school, you'll be able to read it and relate to it, but middle school will be your jam. This is it's a box set that collects 4 different graphic novels. So it is a little pricey. It's $34 retail. Buy it through the links, you'll save $28. However, if this premise intrigues you, just check out one of the graphic novels, because I think if you pick up one of the graphic novels, you'll like it, and maybe you'll just baby step your way into the books one at a time instead of buying all 4. However, as a box set, it's a pretty good deal and fun times if you're not familiar with the franchise. Again, I go back to my time at this book fair. Volunteer at your local book fair. Oh, here's a side note I meant to say. Scholastic. You know Scholastic, the book publisher. They also publish this next series of books I'm going to talk about. They have a warehouse sale somewhere close to you twice a year. It happens late in the school year and around November, December in every school year. Just do a quick little search for warehouse sale Scholastic books. The reason we go to these book sales is you can buy books by the box or at half off, because you're buying at the warehouse level. You may not have the selection that you want, but for us, this is a great chance for us to buy books, little tchotchkes or stuff for the classrooms, or books for the kids for future presents. As an example, the box sale that I briefly mentioned, you can buy books by the pound. And that's a cool concept. You can't buy any book by the pound, but they cordon you off into a room, and they say, okay, all the books in this area you can put in this box, and this box will cost you $20. Awesome. And it's a big box that you can put maybe 3 or 4 dozen books in, depending upon what books you buy. So do a search for that if you like books or if you want to do something cool to support your local school. This series of books most likely will not be in that cheap area unless they're damaged. And a damaged front page? Big hooey. This is Raina Telegemeieir. This is the Raina Telegemeieir collection. She is a rock star author that if you have a kid in school, they know this author, even elementary school. My time at the book fair, this author, Raina Telegemeieir, she had 3 books that were for sale and were constantly being purchased. This is the Raina Telegemeieir collection that collects all 4 of her graphic novels so far: Smile, Drama, Sisters, and Ghosts. They're mainly going to appeal to girls, but our 8-year-old, he was 7 at the time, he read Ghosts, and he liked it, but it wasn't one of his favorites, but he enjoyed it, and we liked talking about it and the pros and cons of each person, and are they doing the right thing? It's really fabulous artwork, and once you look at her books, I'll give you an example. One of the character who's on Smile, who's on the cover, it's a smiley emoji with braces. You say to yourself, I don't know that book, but I've seen that emoji and that book cover in my kid's library, or I've seen it in bookstores. That's how, I guess, prolific Raina Telegemeier's books are. You know them by the covers and how they look. And this box set retails for, hold your breath, $44. So kind of pricey, and if you buy them by the book, it's cheaper. So buy them by the book or buy them in this box set. It's great stuff, and it gives me a chance to kind of say this is a fabulous author who really speaks to middle school kids directly, but elementary school kids want to read her stuff, and they can. It is very appropriate and very engaging. It's the Raina Telegemeieir collection. It's out this week. This book, it's an early reader book, and it made us smile because it reminded us of a large comic book back in the mid to late 70s that we purchased when we were a kid. And man, I miss those as a kid. Those big oversized comic books, like the most, the one that's most ingrained in pop culture is the Muhammad Ali versus Superman large comic book. It was written on a large format, and they cost like $1.25 at the time, which was crazy. Now I just wish I had a time machine to go back and buy all of them. This one loosely tells the story of the Flash versus Superman race. It's a new twist on the story, and it's also geared for young readers. So the mob and the mafia are not in this one. It's all good, wholesome fun. It's Justice League Classic Race to Save the Day. This is a softcover book that's going to be cool for young readers. Elementary school kids, kindergartners. It's going to be a read-along book. Give it to an 8 or 9-year-old kid, mainly boys, and they can read it by themselves. But basically, you've got the Flash and Superman decide to take a race around the world. Along the way, evil villains try to stop them and slow them down. It's fun for all. You got to figure, and on theory, the book doesn't make any sense because they could really run around the world like that, and you think that evil villains wouldn't have a chance to slow them down, but that would not be any fun. That'd be it. Don't forget, if you purchase anything for New Comic Book Day, just hashtag it, #NCBD, and you can tag your local comic book store too if they're on social media, and they sure would appreciate it. So it kind of gets the word out about some cool new comic books.
Thanks for listening to Daddy Mojo. Be sure to tune in next time. For more information on any of the things we talked about today, just check out the website, daddymojo.net, or hit us up at Daddy Mojo on social media.